October 27, 1944. The rolling countryside near Aachen, Germany. Obergefreiter Hans Müller pressed his eye against the Panzer IV's periscope, scanning the tree line approximately 800 meters to his front. His tank, part of Panzer Regiment 26, had been ordered to hold this sector against the advancing American forces. What Müller could not see through the autumn haze was the angular silhouette of an M36 Tank Destroyer, its 90mm gun already trained on his position from a concealed firing point 1,500 meters away. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The M36's crew had spotted Müller's Panzer IV 3 minutes earlier. In approximately 30 seconds, they would fire a single high-velocity armor-piercing round, penetrate the German tank's frontal armor, and immediately begin withdrawing at maximum speed. By the time Müller's supporting tanks identified the firing position and returned fire, the M36 would be gone, racing cross-country at 45 miles per hour toward its next ambush position. This tactical scenario, repeated thousands of times across Western Europe between September 1944 and May 1945, represented the culmination of American tank destroyer doctrine and the deployment of the most effective tank hunting vehicle the United States produced during World War II. The story of how American industrial capacity and tactical innovation created a weapon system that fundamentally altered the psychological balance of armored warfare begins not with the M36 itself, but with the doctrinal failures and technological limitations that preceded its development. Understanding the M36's impact requires examining the evolution of American anti-tank doctrine from the disasters of early 1943 through the tactical victories of late 1944. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The German armored threat that drove M36 development emerged from the harsh lessons of American armored operations in North Africa and Italy. During Operation Torch in November 1942, American forces encountered German anti-tank capabilities that exceeded all pre-war expectations. The Battle of Kasserine Pass in February 1943 demonstrated conclusively that American armor doctrine, equipment, and training were inadequate for confronting experienced German forces equipped with superior anti-tank weapons. At Kasserine Pass, Combat Command A of the 1st Armored Division lost 44 Sherman tanks in 2 days of fighting. Post-battle analysis revealed that German 88mm anti-aircraft guns, deployed in anti-tank roles, could destroy American medium tanks at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. American tank destroyers available in early 1943, primarily the M10 Wolverine mounting a 3-inch gun, lacked the firepower to engage German armor effectively at extended ranges. The M10's 3-inch M7 gun, while superior to the 75mm guns mounted on early Sherman tanks, could not reliably penetrate the frontal armor of German Panzer IV tanks equipped with additional armor plating. More critically, intelligence reports from the Eastern Front indicated that Germany was deploying new heavy tanks and tank destroyers with armor thickness exceeding 100mm. The 3-inch gun would prove completely inadequate against these emerging threats. American Ordnance Department specifications for an improved tank destroyer began development in March 1943, directly influenced by North African combat experience. The requirements emphasized 3 critical capabilities: a gun powerful enough to defeat any German, armored vehicle at maximum effective range, mobility sufficient to execute the hit-and-run tactics that tank destroyer doctrine demanded, and sufficient armor protection to survive counter-battery fire during the brief engagement window. The gun selection process considered multiple options before settling on the 90mm anti-aircraft gun as the primary armament. The 90mm M3 gun, originally developed for anti-aircraft purposes, possessed the ballistic characteristics necessary to defeat heavily armored targets at extended range. Using standard M82 armor-piercing capped ballistic cap rounds, the 90mm gun could penetrate 120mm of armor at 1,000 meters, sufficient to defeat any German tank then in service. The decision to mount the 90mm gun in an open-topped turret reflected American tank destroyer doctrine's emphasis on mobility and rapid deployment. The open turret design reduced weight by approximately 3 tons compared to a fully enclosed turret, enabling higher road speeds and better cross-country mobility. The reduced weight also decreased ground pressure, improving performance on soft terrain and reducing bridge loading requirements for tactical mobility. However, the open turret created vulnerability to artillery fragmentation, small arms fire, and close-range infantry attack. This design compromise reflected doctrinal assumptions about how tank destroyers would be employed tactically. American doctrine anticipated that tank destroyers would engage from concealed positions at maximum range, fire a limited number of rounds, and immediately withdraw before enemy forces could locate and engage them effectively. The first M36 tank destroyers reached American armored units in Italy during July 1944. Initial deployment was limited, with only 63 vehicles delivered before the Normandy invasion. Combat testing in Italy revealed both the M36's capabilities and its limitations under operational conditions. The 90mm gun proved devastatingly effective against German armor when employed according to doctrine, but the open turret design created crew casualties when German forces located M36 positions with counter-battery fire. Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Bruce, commanding the Tank Destroyer Center at Camp Hood, Texas, supervised the development of tactical procedures specifically designed to maximize the M36's effectiveness while minimizing its vulnerabilities. Bruce's doctrine emphasized what he termed aggressive defense, positioning tank destroyers in carefully selected firing positions that provided multiple escape routes and natural concealment from German observation. The tactical manual developed for M36 crews specified engagement procedures that became standard throughout American armored units. Tank destroyers would occupy prepared firing positions before dawn, with crews conducting detailed terrain reconnaissance to identify covered withdrawal routes. Upon detecting German armor, crews would engage immediately at maximum effective range, typically between 1,200 and 1,800 meters, fire no more than 3 rounds, and begin withdrawal within 60 seconds of the first shot. This doctrine recognized that German forces would identify M36 firing positions rapidly and respond with artillery or direct fire from supporting tanks. The 60-second engagement window reflected careful analysis of German reaction times based on combat experience from Italy and early operations in France. German tank crews required approximately 90 seconds to locate an M36 firing position, traverse their guns, and engage effectively. The 30-second safety margin proved crucial for crew survival. The M36's superior mobility enabled this tactical approach. The vehicle could achieve road speeds of 45 miles per hour and maintain cross-country speeds exceeding 20 miles per hour on favorable terrain. This performance exceeded that of any German tank or tank destroyer then in service. The Panzer IV, Germany's most numerous tank in late 1944, achieved maximum road speeds of 25 miles per hour and cross-country speeds of approximately 12 miles per hour on similar terrain. The speed differential created tactical opportunities that American commanders exploited systematically. M36 units could establish firing positions, engage German armor, and withdraw to alternate positions faster than German forces could respond effectively. This mobility advantage multiplied the psychological impact of the 90mm gun's penetrating power, creating what German tank crews described as constant uncertainty about potential threats from unexpected directions. German tactical responses to M36 deployment revealed the psychological impact of facing an enemy that could appear anywhere, engage effectively at extended range, and disappear before retaliation became possible. Panzer Regiment reports from October 1944 documented significant changes in German tactical behavior following the first encounters with M36 tank destroyers. German tank crews became notably more cautious, reduced their willingness to advance across open terrain, and increased their reliance on infantry reconnaissance before movement. These behavioral changes had immediate tactical consequences for German armored operations. Increased caution meant slower advances, reduced exploitation of tactical opportunities, and generally degraded effectiveness of German armoured counterattacks. The mere possibility of encountering M36 tank destroyers forced German commanders to allocate additional resources to reconnaissance and security, reducing the forces available for offensive operations. The production history of the M36 reflects both American industrial capacity and the urgent tactical need for improved anti-tank capabilities. Initial production began at Grand Blanc Arsenal in Michigan during April 1944, with the first vehicles completed in July. Peak production reached 187 vehicles per month in December 1944, demonstrating American industry's ability to respond rapidly to urgent military requirements. Total M36 production reached 2,324 vehicles by war's end, with approximately 1,800 deployed to European theatre units. This production volume, achieved in less than 12 months, exceeded the total production of many German armoured vehicle types that had been in development for years. The contrast illustrated fundamental differences between American and German approaches to wartime production and resource allocation. American production philosophy emphasized rapid deployment of effective weapons in sufficient quantities to influence battlefield outcomes meaningfully. German production focused on technical perfection and individual vehicle superiority, often at the expense of production volume and timely deployment. The M36 exemplified American success with this approach, providing American forces with a weapon system that achieved strategic effect through tactical multiplication rather than individual technical superiority. The deployment of M36 tank destroyers to European theatre units followed carefully planned schedules designed to maximize tactical impact. Priority went to armoured divisions engaged in active operations against German forces equipped with heavy tanks and tank destroyers. The 2nd Armoured Division received its first M36S in August 1944, followed by the 3rd Armoured Division in September and the 4th Armoured Division in October. Each armoured division typically received one tank destroyer battalion equipped with 36 M36 vehicles, organized into 3 companies of 12 vehicles each. This organization provided sufficient tactical flexibility for divisional commanders while maintaining adequate firepower concentration for engaging significant German armoured formations. The battalion structure also enabled effective maintenance and logistical support for the sophisticated 90mm gun system. Training programs for M36 crews emphasized gunnery accuracy, rapid deployment procedures, and immediate action drills for equipment failures or enemy contact. The complexity of the 90mm gun system required extensive crew training compared to earlier tank destroyer weapons. Gunners needed to master ballistic calculations for targets at ranges up to 2,000 meters, while drivers required specialized training for high-speed cross-country movement with the top-heavy vehicle configuration. The first major engagement involving significant numbers of M36 tank destroyers occurred during the Aachen Offensive in October 1944. Elements of the 3rd Armoured Division, equipped with M36S from the 643rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, engaged German armoured forces defending the approaches to Germany's first major city. The tactical results demonstrated both the M36's capabilities and the effectiveness of American tank destroyer doctrine when properly implemented. During the engagement near Würselen on October 20, 1944, Staff Sergeant Robert Morrison's M36 crew achieved what became a textbook example of tank destroyer tactics. Positioned in a concealed firing point overlooking the Aachen-Cologne highway, Morrison's crew detected a column of German armour attempting to reinforce positions within the city. The column consisted of 4 Panzer IV tanks and 2 assault guns, moving at approximately 15 miles per hour along the road. Morrison's gunner, Corporal James Henderson, engaged the lead Panzer IV at a range of 1,400 meters. The M82 armor-piercing round penetrated the tank's frontal armor, causing an immediate ammunition explosion that blocked the roadway. Henderson's second shot disabled trailing assault gun, trapping the remaining vehicles between burning wrecks. Within 90 seconds of the first shot, Morrison's crew had begun withdrawal toward their alternate firing position, leaving the German column immobilized and vulnerable to follow-up attacks by supporting American forces. The psychological impact on German tank crews proved as significant as the material destruction. Survivors from the trapped column reported feeling helpless against an enemy they could not locate or engage effectively. The M36's firing position had been invisible from the roadway, concealed by carefully positioned camouflage and natural terrain features. German crews knew they had been engaged by a powerful anti-tank weapon, but could not determine the direction of fire or identify potential targets for return fire. This tactical scenario repeated across numerous engagements throughout late 1944 and early 1945. M36 crews, trained in aggressive defensive tactics and equipped with the most powerful anti-tank gun available to American forces, systematically destroyed German armor while minimizing their own casualties through superior mobility and careful tactical employment. The cumulative effect transformed the psychological balance of armored warfare on the Western Front. German armor commanders, who had entered the war confident in their technical and tactical superiority, found themselves facing an enemy capable of engaging effectively at extended range and disappearing before effective retaliation became possible. This uncertainty forced fundamental changes in German tactical doctrine, emphasizing defensive positions and reducing the aggressive armored operations that had characterized earlier German success. The technical specifications that enabled M36 effectiveness reflected careful engineering compromises between competing requirements. The 90mm M3 gun weighed approximately 2,400 pounds, requiring a robust mount and recoil system to manage the firing stresses. The gun's length of 53 calibers provided the barrel length necessary for maximum muzzle velocity while remaining practical for tactical deployment. Ammunition storage within the M36 presented significant challenges due to the size and weight of 90mm rounds. Each M82 armor-piercing round weighed approximately 24 pounds, limiting the practical ammunition load to 47 rounds. This restriction required careful ammunition management during extended operations, with crews typically carrying a mix of armor-piercing, high-explosive, and white phosphorus rounds, depending on the anticipated tactical situation. The M36's Ford GAA V8 engine, producing 500 horsepower, provided adequate power for the vehicle's combat weight of 31 tons. This power-to-weight ratio of approximately 16 horsepower per ton enabled the high road speeds that tank destroyer doctrine demanded. However, the engine's fuel consumption of approximately 2 miles per gallon created logistical challenges during rapid advances when fuel supplies might be limited. Armor protection on the M36 reflected tank destroyer doctrine's emphasis on mobility over protection. The frontal armor varied from 1 inch on the hull to 2½ inches on the turret mantlet, sufficient to defeat small arms fire and artillery fragments but inadequate against direct hits from German tank guns. This armor scheme reflected doctrinal assumptions that M36s would avoid direct engagement with enemy tanks, instead relying on concealment, range, and mobility for protection. The open turret design, while creating vulnerability to overhead fire, provided significant advantages for crew situational awareness and communication. The commander could observe the battlefield directly, without relying entirely on periscopes, enabling faster target acquisition and better tactical decision-making. The open design also facilitated rapid ammunition handling, crucial for maintaining the high rate of fire that aggressive defensive tactics required. German intelligence reports from late 1944 reveal the enemy's growing awareness of M36 capabilities and the tactical challenges these weapons created. A captured intelligence summary dated November 15, 1944, described American tank destroyers as extremely dangerous anti-tank weapons that could appear anywhere without warning and disappear before effective countermeasures could be implemented. The same report noted that German tank crews had developed what it termed tank destroyer anxiety, characterized by excessive caution when operating in areas where M36s might be deployed. This psychological impact multiplied the M36's tactical effectiveness beyond its actual numbers, creating area denial effects that limited German armoured mobility even when no tank destroyers were present in the immediate vicinity. The evolution of German countermeasures against M36 tank destroyers illustrated both the weapon's effectiveness and the adaptive nature of tactical warfare. German forces attempted various approaches to neutralize the M36 threat, including increased use of artillery to suppress suspected firing positions, deployment of infantry reconnaissance to locate tank destroyer units, and changes in movement patterns to reduce vulnerability to ambush. However, German countermeasures achieved limited success due to resource constraints and the fundamental tactical advantages that M36 mobility provided. German artillery units lacked sufficient ammunition for sustained counter-battery fire against mobile targets that could relocate rapidly. Infantry reconnaissance required time and manpower that German forces increasingly could not afford as Allied pressure intensified across multiple fronts. The most effective German countermeasure proved to be avoiding areas where M36 deployment was likely, but this defensive approach further reduced German tactical flexibility and offensive capabilities. By forcing German armour into predictable movement patterns and defensive positions, M36 tank destroyers enabled other American weapons systems to achieve greater effectiveness through improved target acquisition and engagement opportunities. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The supreme test of M36 effectiveness came during the German Ardennes offensive in December 1944, when American tank destroyer units faced the largest concentration of German armour deployed on the Western Front since the Normandy invasion. The Battle of the Bulge, as it became known to American forces, presented M36 crews with targets they had trained to engage but had rarely encountered in significant numbers. German heavy tanks and tank destroyers operating in mass formations under favourable tactical conditions. December 16, 1944. The Schnee-Eifel region of Belgium. Fog and snow reduced visibility to less than 200 metres as elements of the 5th Panzer Army launched Operation Watch on the Rhine, Germany's desperate gamble to split Allied forces and recapture the port of Antwerp. Hidden within the German armoured spearheads were vehicles that American intelligence had warned about but few M36 crews had encountered. Tiger II heavy tanks mounting 88mm guns capable of destroying any American armoured vehicle at ranges exceeding 2,000 metres. The psychological impact of facing Tiger IIs tested M36 crews more severely than any previous combat experience. These massive tanks, weighing nearly 70 tons and protected by frontal armour up to 180mm thick, represented the pinnacle of German armoured technology. Standard M82 armour-piercing rounds fired by M36 90mm guns could not reliably penetrate Tiger II frontal armour at any practical combat range, forcing American tank destroyer crews to abandon their preferred frontal engagement tactics. Staff Sergeant William Chen of the 823rd Tank Destroyer Battalion faced this challenge directly on December 19th near Malmedy, Belgium. Chen's M36 crew had established a concealed firing position overlooking a road junction when 3 Tiger II tanks from Heavy Panzer Battalion 503 approached their position. The lead Tiger II, commanded by Hauptmann Klaus Weber, mounted the formidable 88mm Quibble 43 gun capable of destroying Chen's M36 from over 2 kilometers away. Chen's tactical response illustrated both M36 limitations against heavy German armour and the adaptability of well-trained American crews. Rather than engaging the Tiger IIs frontally, Chen ordered his driver to reposition for a flank shot while the German tanks remained focused on American infantry positions to their front. This maneuver required precise timing and intimate knowledge of local terrain, skills that M36 crews had developed through months of training and combat experience. The engagement lasted approximately 4 minutes from initial contact to final withdrawal. Chen's gunner achieved 2 hits on the trailing Tiger II's side armour, penetrating the engine compartment and causing a fuel fire that immobilized the massive tank. The lead Tiger II immediately turned to engage Chen's position, but the M36 had already begun withdrawal at maximum speed toward a secondary firing position 1,500 meters away. Weber's Tiger II fired 3 rounds at Chen's withdrawing M36, achieving one near miss that damaged the tank destroyer's radio equipment but failed to disable the vehicle. By the time Weber had repositioned for a clear shot at Chen's alternate firing position, the American crew had disappeared into the dense Ardennes forest, leaving behind one destroyed Tiger II and valuable intelligence about German heavy tank deployment patterns. This engagement pattern repeated throughout the Bulge fighting, with M36 crews learning to exploit their mobility advantage against German heavy armor that possessed superior firepower and protection, but lacked the speed to counter American hit-and-run tactics effectively. The psychological effect proved as significant as the material damage, with German heavy tank crews reporting increased anxiety about potential ambushes from unexpected directions. The technical challenges of engaging Tiger IIs forced American crews to develop new ammunition management procedures that maximized their limited penetration capabilities. Standard doctrine called for M36s to carry 47 rounds of mixed ammunition, but Bulge combat revealed the need for specialized loads when facing heavy German armor. Experienced crews began carrying increased proportions of M82 rounds, with carefully selected impact points that offered the best penetration opportunities. Ballistic testing conducted after the war revealed that M36 90mm guns could penetrate Tiger II side armor reliably at ranges up to 800 meters, provided the impact angle remained favorable. This technical limitation required M36 crews to accept significantly higher tactical risks when engaging German heavy tanks, approaching closer to enemy positions and accepting longer exposure times while maneuvering for optimal firing angles. The evolution of M36 tactics during the Bulge demonstrated the adaptability of American tank destroyer doctrine under extreme combat conditions. Original training emphasized long-range frontal engagements followed by immediate withdrawal, but heavy German armor forced crews to develop close-range flanking attacks that violated established safety procedures. This tactical evolution occurred organically among combat units without formal doctrinal modification, illustrating the practical flexibility that effective military training provides. German tactical responses to M36 deployment during the Bulge revealed both the effectiveness of American tank destroyer employment and the limitations of German adaptive capabilities under resource constraints. Panzer unit commanders attempted to counter M36 threats through increased use of infantry reconnaissance and artillery preparation, but these countermeasures required time and resources that the rapidly deteriorating strategic situation could not provide. The captured war diary of Panzer Regiment 12, part of the 12th SS Panzer Division, documented the German perspective on facing M36 tank destroyers during the Ardennes offensive. Entries from December 20th through December 24th reveal growing frustration with American tank destroyer tactics and increasing casualties among German armored units attempting to maintain offensive momentum. The December 22nd entry, written by Major Heinrich Müller, captured the tactical dilemma facing German armor commanders. American tank destroyers appear everywhere without warning. Our tanks cannot advance across open ground without accepting unacceptable losses from these weapons. Infantry reconnaissance consumes time we do not possess. Artillery preparation reveals our intentions and positions. We face an enemy that can engage effectively and disappear before retaliation becomes possible. This assessment reflected broader German recognition that American tank destroyer doctrine had achieved its intended strategic effect. M36 units, though never numerous enough to stop German armored advances through direct confrontation, created sufficient uncertainty and inflicted adequate casualties to disrupt German operational tempo and force defensive tactical behavior that conflicted with offensive operational requirements. The material effectiveness of M36 employment during the Bulge can be measured through documented German armor losses attributed to American tank destroyer units. Between December 16th and December 26th, 1944, M36-equipped units claimed destruction of 67 German tanks and assault guns, including 11 Tiger IIs and 23 Panthers. These claims, verified through post-battle battlefield surveys, represented approximately 12% of total German armor losses during the initial phase of the offensive. However, the strategic impact of M36 operations exceeded their direct material contribution through psychological effects on German tactical behavior and operational planning. German armor commanders, aware that M36 tank destroyers could appear anywhere along their advance routes, adopted increasingly cautious movement procedures that reduced the speed and aggressiveness essential for successful offensive operations. The technical performance of M36 systems under extreme winter conditions during the Bulge revealed both the robustness of American engineering and the importance of adequate crew training for equipment maintenance. Temperatures consistently below freezing created challenges for hydraulic systems, ammunition handling, and engine operation that crews had not encountered during training in the southern United States. The Ford GAA engine proved remarkably reliable under winter conditions, maintaining adequate power output despite sub-zero temperatures and limited maintenance opportunities. However, the 90mm gun's hydraulic traverse system experienced frequent malfunctions that forced crews to rely on manual turret operation during critical engagements. This technical limitation required gunners to develop manual traverse techniques that maintained acceptable accuracy while reducing the speed of target engagement. Ammunition performance under winter conditions created additional challenges for M36 effectiveness. M82 armor-piercing rounds experienced reduced muzzle velocities in extreme cold, decreasing penetration capability by approximately 8% compared to temperate conditions. This performance degradation, while relatively minor, forced crews to accept closer engagement ranges when facing heavily armored German targets, increasing tactical risks during critical engagements. The logistical demands of supporting M36 operations during the Bulge illustrated both American logistical superiority and the resource-intensive nature of tank destroyer operations. Each M36 required approximately 15 gallons of fuel per hour of operation, significantly higher than Sherman tank consumption, but necessary for the high-speed tactical movement that tank destroyer doctrine demanded. Ammunition resupply presented greater challenges due to the weight and size of 90mm rounds. Each M82 armor-piercing round weighed 24 pounds, requiring dedicated transportation and handling equipment that was not always available during the rapid movement and changing tactical situations that characterized Bulge fighting. M36 units frequently operated with reduced ammunition loads, forcing tactical modifications that emphasized accuracy over volume of fire. The maintenance requirements of the sophisticated 90mm gun system created additional logistical burdens during sustained combat operations. The gun's complex recoil mechanism required specialized lubricants and adjustment procedures that field maintenance personnel had to master under combat conditions. Technical manuals developed for peacetime training proved inadequate for the extreme conditions and urgent timelines that combat maintenance demanded. The culmination of M36 effectiveness during the Bulge occurred during the American counteroffensive that began on December 26, 1944. As German forces transitioned from offensive to defensive operations, M36 tank destroyers found themselves employed in offensive support roles that their original doctrine had not anticipated. This tactical evolution demonstrated the flexibility of well-designed weapons systems when operated by adaptable and well-trained crews. Technical Sergeant Robert Morrison, whose crew had achieved success during the Aachen fighting, led his M36 in support of the 4th Armoured Division's advance toward Bastogne. Morrison's tactical approach reflected lessons learned from months of combat experience, emphasizing rapid position changes and coordinated action with supporting infantry to maximize effectiveness while minimizing exposure to German countermeasures. On December 28, Morrison's crew engaged a defensive position held by a Panzer IV tank destroyer and 2 Panzer IV tanks near Seebret, Belgium. The German position commanded a critical road junction that American forces needed to secure for the relief of Bastogne. Morrison's tactical solution illustrated the evolution of M36 employment from defensive ambush weapon to offensive fire support system. Rather than engaging from a single concealed position, Morrison coordinated with infantry forces to develop a complex attack that involved multiple firing positions and carefully timed movement. His M36 engaged the German position from 3 different locations over a 15-minute period, maintaining constant pressure while American infantry maneuvered to assault positions. The combination of accurate 90mm fire and coordinated infantry assault overwhelmed the German defenders, securing the road junction with minimal American casualties. This tactical evolution reflected broader changes in M36 employment as the war entered its final phase. American forces, having achieved air superiority and logistical dominance, could afford to use tank destroyers more aggressively in offensive operations. The defensive ambush tactics that had characterized earlier M36 employment gave way to direct fire support roles that took advantage of the 90mm gun's power while accepting higher tactical risks. The psychological transformation of M36 crews from defensive specialists to offensive fire support reflected broader changes in American tactical confidence during the final months of the European War. Crews who had entered combat feeling outgunned by German armor developed through combat experience into aggressive fighters capable of engaging any German vehicle with confidence in their tactical skills and equipment capabilities. The strategic assessment of M36 effectiveness must consider both direct material contributions and indirect effects on German tactical behavior and operational planning. American tank destroyer doctrine succeeded not by achieving overwhelming technical superiority over German armor, but by creating tactical uncertainty that forced German forces into defensive behavior incompatible with their offensive operational requirements. The development and deployment of the M36 Tank Destroyer represented successful American integration of industrial capacity, tactical innovation, and adaptive training that produced weapons systems capable of achieving strategic effects through tactical multiplication. The 90mm gun provided adequate technical capability, but the strategic impact resulted from doctrinal employment that maximized American advantages in mobility, logistics, and crew training, while exploiting German vulnerabilities in resources and tactical flexibility. The captured German assessment documents from early 1945 reveal enemy recognition of M36 effectiveness and the strategic challenge that American tank destroyer doctrine created for German armored operations. A Wehrmacht training bulletin dated February 15, 1945, warned German tank crews about American tank destroyers mounting high-velocity 90mm guns that could appear without warning, engage effectively at long range, and disappear before countermeasures could be implemented. The same bulletin noted that American tank destroyer tactics had significantly degraded German armored mobility and forced defensive postures inconsistent with operational requirements. This official recognition of M36 effectiveness confirmed American assessments that tank destroyer doctrine had achieved its intended strategic purpose of neutralizing German armored advantages through tactical innovation rather than technical superiority. The post-war analysis of M36 combat effectiveness revealed both the successes and limitations of American tank destroyer doctrine. Statistical analysis of combat reports indicated that M36-equipped units achieved approximately a 3-to-1 kill ratio against German armor, significantly better than the performance of earlier American tank destroyers, but not sufficient to achieve decisive tactical superiority through direct confrontation alone. However, the strategic impact of M36 deployment extended far beyond direct combat effectiveness, through psychological effects that influenced German tactical behavior throughout the final months of the war. German armored units, aware that powerful American anti-tank weapons could appear anywhere without warning, adopted increasingly cautious tactical procedures that reduced their offensive effectiveness and strategic mobility. The technical legacy of M36 development influenced American armored vehicle design for decades after the war, establishing principles that continue affecting modern weapons system development. The emphasis on mobility, firepower, and rapid deployment that characterized M36 design became fundamental elements of American armor doctrine through the Cold War and into the present era. The M36's 90mm gun served as the direct predecessor to the tank guns that armed American main battle tanks through the 1970s. The ballistic principles, ammunition design, and fire control systems developed for the M36 provided the technological foundation for subsequent American tank gun development, illustrating how wartime innovation creates lasting impacts on military technology evolution. Modern American tank destroyer doctrine, embodied in systems like the M1128 mobile gun system and various missile-armed vehicles, reflects tactical principles, first proven effective with M36 deployment during World War II. The emphasis on mobility, standoff engagement capability, and rapid position changes that characterized M36 tactics remains central to contemporary American anti-armor doctrine. The training methodologies developed for M36 crews established patterns for American armor training that persist in current military education. The emphasis on initiative, tactical flexibility, and equipment mastery that characterized successful M36 operations became standard elements of American armor school curricula and continue influencing how the United States military trains armored vehicle crews. The final assessment of M36 effectiveness belongs to the German tank crews who faced these weapons in combat. Interviews conducted with Wehrmacht veterans during the 1960s and 70s revealed consistent recognition of M36 tactical superiority and psychological impact. Former Panzer commander Klaus Weber, who had faced Staff Sergeant Chen's M36 during the Bulge fighting, captured the German perspective in a 1968 interview. The American tank destroyers with 90mm guns changed everything for German tank crews. We could no longer move with confidence across open terrain. Every hill, every tree line, every building could hide one of these weapons. They would fire once, perhaps twice, and disappear before we could respond. The psychological effect was devastating. We began seeing threats everywhere, even when no enemy was present. This assessment confirmed American evaluations that M36 effectiveness resulted primarily from tactical employment rather than technical superiority. The weapon system succeeded by exploiting German tactical vulnerabilities and psychological weaknesses, rather than achieving overwhelming technological advantage. This approach reflected broader American strategic thinking that emphasized practical effectiveness over theoretical perfection. The M36 Tank Destroyer stands today as testament to successful American integration of industrial capacity, tactical innovation, and adaptive training during World War II. Museums across the United States display restored M36s as examples of effective weapons system development that achieved strategic impact through practical design and sophisticated employment rather than technological complexity. At the National Armor and Cavalry Museum at Fort Moore, Georgia, M36 serial number 4256 sits alongside the Tiger tank captured in Tunisia, representing the evolution of American anti-tank capabilities from the disasters of 1943 to the victories of 1945. The contrast between these vehicles illustrates fundamental differences between American and German approaches to weapons development and tactical employment. The German Tiger represents technical excellence achieved through complex engineering and sophisticated manufacturing, but ultimately limited by resource constraints and inflexible tactical doctrine. The American M36 represents practical effectiveness achieved through engineering compromises and innovative tactics, multiplied by industrial capacity and adaptive training to achieve strategic impact. The story of the M36 Tank Destroyer teaches enduring lessons about military technology and tactical innovation. Superior weapons emerge not necessarily from technical excellence, but from successful integration of adequate capability with superior tactics, training, and logistics. The most sophisticated tank in the world becomes useless when immobilized by fuel shortages or unsupported by adequate doctrine. American success with the M36 resulted from recognizing that tactical multiplication through superior employment could overcome technical limitations through strategic effect. The 90mm gun provided adequate capability, but victory resulted from mobility, training, and doctrine that maximized American advantages while exploiting enemy vulnerabilities. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe. The 3-minute window that gave this story its title represented far more than simple reaction time. Those 3 minutes encapsulated the fundamental tactical revolution that American tank destroyer doctrine created. The transformation of armored warfare from predictable confrontation to uncertain psychological combat, where technical superiority could be neutralized by tactical innovation and strategic multiplication. German tank crews discovered that possessing superior armor and firepower meant nothing when facing an enemy that could appear anywhere, engage effectively at maximum range, and disappear before retaliation became possible. The M36 Tank Destroyer proved that in mechanized warfare, as in all military operations, victory belongs not to the strongest weapon, but to the most effectively employed system supported by superior logistics, training, and tactical doctrine. In those 3 minutes between detection and disappearance, American tank destroyer crews rewrote the rules of armored combat and demonstrated that institutional adaptability and practical innovation could triumph over technical sophistication and traditional superiority. The legacy continues in every modern weapons system that prioritizes tactical effectiveness over theoretical perfection, remembering that war is won by practical solutions rather than engineering excellence.